Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. This time out, we are joined by two very special guests. We have Jason Roy and Jesse Garcia from the band Building 429.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thanks for having us in.
Appreciate you being here. You guys were just doing a performance over in our new Crescendo Cafe stage.
Yeah, which was awesome, by the way. I had no idea. We knew that we were told you had a nice amphitheater, but that cafeteria stage is pretty cool. And we had a bunch of fans come in with the radio station that we were here to see locally. We're here to play Winter Jam tonight. But we were able to hang out there and play an acoustic show for them for a few minutes. It was great.
Yeah, that was great. I took my lunch over and sat down
sweet.
and ate lunch and watched you guys play. It was really cool. They had it sounded great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Great.
nice stuff. Do you do a lot of acoustic shows like that?
You know, the funny thing is, we kind of have, the older we get, the more that there's like just promotional opportunities where you just have to kind of show up. And honestly, we kind of really enjoy it because sometimes there's so much tech involved in a show, and there's so much flash and pop that you can't really tell whether the guys can play or not. You know what I mean? Right. So we've actually gone out. We've even considered doing an acoustic tour just so we could kind of go out and just kind of be free of technology for a little bit and just play.
It really lets you kind of focus in on the songs, and the harmonies you guys were doing were great, and being able to hear that clearly in a situation like that, I think it's a lot of fun to perform that way.
Yeah, these guys are ridiculous. I mean, Jesse's a ridiculous musician, especially if we have a piano out there. It just becomes a whole lot more fun. And now, granted, our shows are awesome. We love it. I mean, we get out there tonight and we play, 10,000 people, and it's a rock show. That's fun too.
Oh yeah.
It's fun to strip back and I know I've had those moments where we after we play do a little small performance or something. I actually look at these guys like, wow. I mean, this is pretty tight,
Yeah.
Just you get into this routine of doing our set, like you said, all this production and all that, and you kind of miss just the core of who you are as a band.
Right. I would bet that doing that set like this, where you have the acoustic setting and the harmonies, then when you go on stage, it probably makes you a little tighter in that situation as well, just having kind of had that clean rehearsal.
Yeah, and I think also, you have to learn, I think the acoustic thing, you have to learn what you can pull off and what you can't pull off, and
right.
For the sake of the song, you kind of learn to kind of dial back all the stuff that you would play in a show. And but we do love playing together, and the acoustic thing, the more promotional opportunities we have, the more we kind of have to do that. And there was a season when we hated it. I'm just going to be real. There was a season when it was like, are we a rock band or are we not? But we've grown to love it, and I think you're right. It does make us a little tighter.
Yeah, right. Fun stuff. So you guys have had tremendous success. Band started 2002. You were Best New Artist in 2007. Right?
In
2005?
Yeah.
So it took you 3 years to be the Best New Artist.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of hard work.
We started as independent in '99, so it took us a while to get there.
And you put your first album out. Was it released independently? I read that it was released on CDRs.
Totally. We made 3 records before we ever signed our first record deal, and they were all, you'd show up at a terrible. I remember there was this one studio we showed up at, and he didn't have. At the time, he didn't have Pro Tools or anything like that, so he was like, this is all natural music, and it was just, we threw it together and we played it all in a half a day.
Right.
But we had a CD, and so we were able to send that out as promotional material, and we sold 4,000 of those, which is not a lot now, but then it was like, we just sold 4,000 records of us just slamming it out in a kind of a garage.
Right.
What would happen if we had an opportunity to do more? And so we just continually grew until we finally were able to sign a record deal and actually get in some big studios.
Right. I would expect having that kind of organic experience of growing the band like that probably made you stronger as you went forward, because you kind of have that basis, that foundation.
Yeah, we had definitely. I think that when you struggle as an artist, as a band, but when you're like all in and you're struggling, something about that, it makes you a little bit stronger for the struggles that are inevitably going to come once you've signed your record deal. People told me one time, they said, well, when you sign your record deal, you're just getting started, and I was like, oh, no, we made it. And
that's when it gets hard.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's when the work triples
Yeah, it gets way harder. And so for us, we didn't win on a game show or anything like that, we didn't play in our church and then somebody just walk in and discover us. We had to go out and just work our tail off for 5 years to finally be discovered, to start all over again.
Right.
And now, 15 years later, we look at it and we go, man, without that struggle, when we would drive 17 hours and play for 2 people, which actually happened.
Wow.
Without that, we wouldn't be so excited about the opportunities that we have today.
Right. And you're still working hard. I mean, you're
Oh.
touring the Winter Jam through the end of this month.
That's right.
And then you're on your own tour starting in April, right? Going
Well,
through the
yeah,
end of
we're
the
on
year,
our own
September,
tour,
something like
making
that?
a record
Yeah.
at the same time. I'm doing a radio promotional thing while we're making a record, while we're touring. I'm going to 40 radio stations in 6 days.
Right.
And the schedule's from 3:30 in the morning till midnight, all 6 days.
Wow.
So the struggle, the work doesn't stop, and for us, like we're just so thankful that to be able to do it. And I think that some people that haven't had to do that, when it's just handed to you, you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to mess with that. you
Right.
know. But
Right.
we're definitely thankful to be able to have the work.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So listening to your music, obviously you guys are great musicians, you have great vocals, great production, but it really, to me, comes back to the songs that you guys are writing. And you've had great success with Where I Belong and We Won't Be Shaken and the awards, Grammy nominations and Dove Awards and
Thank you.
all the different recognition that you've gotten for that. Tell us a little bit about the process of how you write songs. Where do the songs come from and how do you put them together?
It's two-part thing, I think. Songs are everything. It just really is. And the older, when we were younger, we wanted to play, like the playing was everything and the song was secondary. And so that worked for a little while, but then after a while, if the song isn't great, then people just they don't care how good you can play. They just don't,
Right.
And so it's a two-part thing. I used to try to write all the time with a guitar in my hand or a piano in my hand, and what I ended up finding out is that I was limiting my ability to write by my ability or lack of ability on the guitar or piano to find the right key because on a guitar you're always looking for the open E or the open D.
Sure.
That's where you're basing your songs. Well, as a vocalist, those are not really good keys for me, and so I've just kind of eliminated all instruments, and so all of our songs start with a melody and a thought in my head, and then I sit down with great musicians, and they help me kind of tie it all together. And that's not to say that I don't feel like I'm an accomplished musician. I am, but sometimes you work with other people who are really skilled, and they just make it so much easier. Jesse's one of those guys.
Right.
So that's how it starts. But then when we get to the studio, and we kind of have this roughed-in idea. That's where just the brilliance of Jesse shows up, and the brilliance of Aaron, our bass player, and Michael, our drummer, shows up, and that's what then makes it us. But the big change in our music and our songwriting happened when I took all instruments off and I began to write with a nursery rhyme mentality, which means, whether there's an instrument beside it or not. Does this melody stick in your head, and is it something that's hooky? And once you have that, then you can go, okay, let's build something here around
Right.
it. And that's kind of been our little secret for a while.
Right. Is it hard as a songwriter to let go of that? Because a lot of songwriters, they're precious about, these are my parts, and I wrote this, and then to have somebody else come in, and is it hard to let that go?
It was at first.
Yeah, it was.
But now it's like, we've just seen such great results from it. And I think Jesse understands his gifting, and I understand my gifting, and for some reason, like, we've been put together, and so we just kind of lean on that.
Right.
And I think it's what makes us great.
Right.
And I think that when that happened, when you kind of let go, that's really when you start growing, and everybody together as a band, individually as well. And I know from my side when I saw that happen, the band just shot up,
Right.
just really propelled us forward.
Right. So what is your mindset when Jason brings you in a lyric with a melody? Then are you looking for a riff to go with that? Are you looking for a particular chord progression? Or what are you hearing as you hear that?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you hear a melody line, you have to. My whole approach is just serving the song, and it's not about. And I think only experience teaches you that it's not about. The whole show-off thing has to, just go out the window and look at what I can do and all that. And you're there to be a part of a song, and I think one of the greatest examples of that, like for me, is like U2. I mean, they hit the Edge's the simple line, but it soars, man. I mean, and it sticks in your head.
Sure.
And it's not about showing off or anything like that. And then it's about just coming together and making this song great, and I think that's always the approach.
I think lost in a lot of music is the simplicity of the music, because you have great producers who come in and they say, okay, so you're gonna play 6-4-1-5, which every pop song is 6-4-1-5.
Sure.
But then you have the Edge come in and play his part, and suddenly 6-4-1-5 is gone. It's there, it's the root, but it's not so prominent, Like for instance, there's the Imagine Dragons song. It is literally 6-4-1-5, but the producers and the players were able to go and all of a sudden you don't hear 6-4-1-5 anymore. But that allows the melody to kind of lead the way, and I think that's one of the things that we've kind of found. There will be a day when I believe that like in the pop world, guitar music's going to come back. And it's gonna launch again. And when that happens, we're gonna be prepped and ready for it, because that's where we started. You know? But finding ways for the melody to kind of lead the way, and then finding the part that fits the melody has kind of been the key to our success, and the key to our what some people might say the explosion of our career changing.
Right. Do you do that as a band? Do you come together as a group, or do the two of you get together, or how does that arrangement process start?
Yeah, it's actually. You can speak to that in the studio, and we're in there. I mean, it's all four of us.
It's definitely all four of us. We, like here recently, I mean, we're like one of the last few bands that actually tracks, especially, well, at least in our industry, like as a unit. And we have the core of the song and the idea, and then we come together and, everybody puts their touch on it. And then it's what makes it us.
Our favorite part of the studio is the beginning, when it's just four guys in a room slamming it out, and we play it and play it and play it and play it until we got it. And
it's really a cool moment. Like
it is.
It's because when we first hit it, play it a few times, and getting the feel for it, and as far as live and making our own, and we track it, and then the producer on the other side, the engineer, is like, let's just get one more shot, and then. We've played it 4 or 5 times, and then we come in there and listen, and then it's incredible to hear what it sounds like, just us four, and you hear it. It's we hear it when it's not great, and then you come in there when it clicks, and it's just totally night and day.
Right.
So that's really a cool moment, and then you have the core, and then you can actually build on that. So,
how involved are the producers in the final result that you guys achieve?
Our producers. We're on this record. We're going to have 3, maybe 4, and the band is going to co-produce the record. We just put our time in, and we kind of know what we want to achieve. Though I will say, the guys that we pick are just awesome. I mean, they're just next level. The guys that we're using are guys who have toured, who know what it feels like to tour, and who are willing to serve our vision of what it looks like. To go out on the road, because that's the one thing too that's another thing that's interesting about our records, is that when we make them with the live show in mind. So literally, we'll stop in the middle of a session and we'll go, now what are we going to do? What's the production? What's lighting going to happen? If you're not inspired for the live show while you're playing the song in the studio, right? Then it's probably not a song to put on the record. Like that's really our mentality. If this doesn't make us think up cool ideas of cool moments in the show. Moving on. So our producers, they've kind of they bought into that. You know what I mean?
When you work with, now you'll have 4 producers and then the 4 of you producing, so 8 people there. Do you break that up so you have one producer on each song, or all of them active at the same time? Or
well, on this project, it's going to be one producer doing per song. But what we love about that is that brings a competitive edge between them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like each one's trying to outdo the other. And then we're kind of, our mentality is that we're going to be there to kind of hold it together and kind of, but our
give it that cohesiveness across the board.
I mean, one of the major things that is different about this, not different, but is special about this band, is that we can literally, while Michael's playing the drums, I can sit across from him, and after the take, I can look at him and say, man, don't do that part again. And while I'm tracking vocals, he'll be in the studio listening to me, and he'll go, hey, that part right there was awesome. Don't do that. That's a rarity, you know what I mean? Where you can actually be in the creative mode, but take commentary, and I think that really it helps us a lot.
Your ego has to let go.
Right, you can't have ego.
Yeah.
Which is like the great guitar part that's like this smoking thing, and everybody goes, it comes out of left field, it doesn't fit. Well,
Right.
you have to be able to lay that down,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Or in the hot seat, you know, you come up with a guitar part, and him being a guitar player hears something else in his head. So to be able to just pick it out and lay it down,
Yeah.
there's definitely no, like, you have to let that go, like the whole ego thing.
You'd be amazed how many parts on our record, I'd be trying to play a part, and he'll hear it, and I'll get out of the seat and hand him the same guitar, and he'll play it. Or vice versa.
Right.
He'll be playing something, oh no, I got it.
It's amazing what you hear when you're not in the seat.
Yeah, right. It's a different perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The right person for the part.
Right.
Is playing it, or they have just a unique,
That's it.
unique twist
Yeah.
on it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you guys demo the songs before you go in, or do you just go in with an acoustic guitar, or are you ready? Are
Yeah.
you pretty much? Do you bring something in to play for the producer?
No, it's pretty well demoed out. I mean,
Yeah, it's-
the demos these days with modern technology, right? I mean,
Sure.
let's be honest. I mean, you pull in Steven Slate drums or you know, just the ridiculous sounding drums, and you go in on the back of the tour bus 2 weeks ago. We wrote a song that you would think it's like sounds like 30 Seconds to Mars is playing in the back of your tour bus, but it's because we have all the right plugins and all the right sounds, and we know exactly what we want. And,
Right.
And so yeah, our demos these days they would have passed for our records for sure years ago.
Right. Are you guys engineering those yourselves?
The demos, well, we work, honestly, that's one of the things we do too. We bring our producers in on the front side as well. So great song idea, this is our idea, this is what we think. Then we're like immediately, those guys are cool, man. They'll jump on the bus with us and we dig in. Now some of them we demo ourselves. And I mean, Jesse and I, even currently, I mean, we do other side projects where it's just us in the studio. Like right now we're working on a film score, Jesse and I are, and doing most of that in the back lounge of the bus, you know. So, so yeah, I mean, depends on the situation, but some things we do ourselves, some things we have producers help us with.
Right. Does that, do you run into problems with what they call demoitis, where you go into the
Yes.
studio and like, well, the demo was this, we need to do this, or it's not better than the demo? Or...
I'll tell you what we run into a lot is we run into the mix on the demo, which is just a fast thrown together mix. It hits so hard generally. And then you go to the record process and you actually record every part, you know, analog, you know, and then you send it off to the mix engineer, and when you get it back, the mix is the problem for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's because when you're doing a demo, you kind of just want the kick drum and the snare just smashing you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the vocal out front. And then, but by the time you get through all the mix process in a record, somebody else's new vision is on it, and even the compression that's added to everything, suddenly everything's kind of linear. And it's definitely a struggle for us. We're like, no, you're killing it, man. Like, leave some space. And they're like, no, but that's what people want on records now. So it's a real struggle, you know, because radio compresses it, plus you've compressed it, plus the mix engineer had a fake mastering bus on. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
So for us, I think that's the big thing that I struggle with. I'm like, the one thing that always sounds better to me is the vocals.
Yeah.
Because I put the time in. I know what I'm singing now. I'm not trying to figure it out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And you're used to hearing probably by the time you get to that mix point, you've heard the rough mix through the
Right.
speakers for however long you've been working on that song and things. So yeah, it gets to be tough to
It does.
to be objective.
Yes.
At that point.
At that point, you have to bring in your A&R, your management, and all these people, and they can tell you, no, this is better. And you're like, okay,
Right.
I hope you're right.
Absolutely.
And they have been wrong.
Your stylist.
Whoever it is, right? Whoever's got the opinion, right?
Yeah.
Right. Guys, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
you spending time with us and all this in-depth discussion of songwriting and production. Is just really fascinating stuff. So I really appreciate you sharing. So,
Yeah, man, thank
with
you.
that, it's a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.